Hey, welcome. Office Hours, Week 6, Coleman's 2015 Certified SBA 7A Loan Underwriting Training. Our stealth panelist, Nathaniel, is very stealth. We're trying to track him down. Let's go to some poll questions, please. You know how to ask the questions? And I'm curious on how you view this material. This is primarily, do you primarily do it at work or at home? I have a couple more questions in terms I'm going to ask you on tablets and phones. But this is for my benefit. I'd like to know how you access this material. Majority at work, 83%. Thank you for that. And what I would like to know is, do you use your phone? And I'm going to ask tablet next. So that's just, if you ever viewed it on the phone, or if you're thinking about viewing on your phone, you can do that as well. This is sort of a production question for us. And I'm surprised. 25% of you have said yes on the phone. Thank you for that. I didn't realize it was that high. Okay, that's worthwhile for me. And finally, tablet. The iPad. Curious about that. Wow, 40% say yes. Okay, well that's useful for me. That's useful for our production. We'll try to make sure that when we're formatting for small screens, we keep that in mind. But thank you for that feedback. We've talked a lot about Franklin Brothers. We've talked about a loan structure. Would you approve it with what you know up to this point in time? Yes or no? And we're talking both loans. We're talking this way I presented it. And we have no outliers. Everyone is on board. By the way, there is no right answer. You can choose to say no on that. And again, please, I would encourage you to write the credit memorandum. I know that wasn't in the contract. Okay. Can we have the next poll question, please? And these are just some technical ones I want to reinforce. Franklin Brothers may lease up to 49% of their new building and still be eligible for SBA financing. True or false? And now, yeah, everyone's going to get that. That's true. Next one's a little bit of a wrinkle, though. And that is, we're going to take some of those leasehold improvements, install a roof, and if they do that with the SBA loan proceeds, can they lease up to 49% of the building? Sort of a trick question. Yeah, we're half and half on that. The question is, yes, they can, but they cannot use loan proceeds to finance the roof. So on that one, you need to document what's happening. The takeaway that I have for you on this is, if you have leasehold improvements, you need to understand what those improvements are going, and are they going to be used for renovating part of the building where there is going to be the tenant. That is a no-no. That is ineligible use of proceeds from that standpoint. So I would structure that. That would have to be, you know, I don't know how you allocate a roof. I guess you go 50-50, 49-51 from that standpoint. But that is the takeaway from there. Next poll question, please. And this is a repeat of the material. And again, I want to hammer this home. Financial statements are considered current. And I'm giving you 4 options. As I let you read through all of the choices. And again, I'm sorry, this is a trick question. Obviously, if they're received within 90 days, both of those are correct. The more correct answer is received within 100 days of lender approval or submission to SBA. That is the significant date that we're looking for from that standpoint. And do we have another one? That's it. That's it. Got a couple email questions. One is very lengthy. I will try to go through that for you. Let me tell you what we talked about. Nathaniel, do we have Nathaniel coming in? Give him a call. Let's see if we can track him down. We talked about collateral calculation. Went through the crunching of the numbers. Borrower documentation, what we want from the borrower. We talked about SBA Form 1920, our favorite friend. And I gave you some of the refinance, construction, and other rules from that standpoint. Question. Form 912. PLP lenders can approve and close the loan if we have a misdemeanor more than 10 years old. Here, let me try to read it off this better, maybe easier. Or if we have, or 3 or less multiple minor offenses. Can the lender rely on the applicant's representation on the 912? Or do we need to double check applicant reps? You can rely on the applicant representation. SBA does not mandate that you go further. However, you can choose to go fingerprint cards and to go and do more of a background check. You can choose to do that. You're not mandated. I put that back in terms of what do you feel is prudent from that standpoint. So no. So yes, the answer is you can rely on the applicant's representation. I talk about in week 7 relying on the applicant's representation regarding citizenship. And you can rely on that. You're not commanded to do anything further. However, you may choose to do so. So it's up to your discretion. We understand we submit to the 912 to the IG, but do we need to do any more applicant's representations? No. You don't have to do it. All right, the next question is a little lengthy, but I decided to try to address it. Hopefully I can handle all of the nuances of this. Additional and costly time-consuming provisions appear to be triggered because the lender must take a lien on all borrowers' fixed assets on a loan over $25,000 up to $350,000. Express. The SLP says for loans over $25,000 up to including $350,000 at a minimum, the lender must take a first lien on assets with loan proceeds and a lien of all the applicant's fixed assets to secure the loan. For 7(a) loans, the term fixed asset means real estate, etc., etc. Okay, so here's the clarification. If a borrower needs a SBA loan of $50,000 to purchase equipment, does the lender have to take a first lien on the equipment being financed? That's always a yes. Separate UCC, you're going to identify it. We need to do that. But does the bank also need to take a lien on borrowers' other fixed assets up to the amount of the to fully secure? That's where we go through that calculation. You can choose to be in a second position on the fixed assets. You can choose to be a first position on inventory receivables, and then it's up to you to put those calculations in there. As I said, in this case, I would not rely on AR and inventory in my calculations unless you go a little step further. But you could still take the lien and not give them credit from that standpoint. So as long as you are fully secured by the definition, the answer is you do not need to take that first lien on those assets. You can also understand that you can take a lien and that some of the other assets have been carved out, and you can put that in your calculation. For example, let's say on Franklin Brothers we have $225,000 in net fixed assets. Let's assume there's a $20,000 piece of equipment that's leased or something. Then yeah, then we would simply say, okay, we have 50% of that 225 less than 20,000 from that standpoint. So you will have the flexibility from that standpoint. But does the bank also need to take a lien on borrowers' other fixed assets up to the amount of lender to fully secure? Again, that's up to you. And we talk a little bit about the real estate. If a bank needs to take the real estate as collateral because of this requirement to take a lien on borrowers' fixed assets, are the environmental assessment rules now triggered? If so, from that standpoint. Environmental assessment rules are not triggered on personal property. By definition, that is exempt. If I feel that the environment may be an issue, and we talk about that in week 7, I would go ahead and do an environmental questionnaire. I think that would be prudent lending. My answer from that standpoint is, if you're asking that question, then I think that would trigger it from that standpoint. Well, very good. Do we have any other questions, Joseph?
I don't think so.
Let's talk about week 7.
Okay.
We're talking about special SBA loan terms and conditions. This is more SBA specific. We're talking about structure. We're talking about appraisals. We do have environmental. I've done something a little bit different in week 7. I've interviewed a couple experts. I interviewed an environmental expert and a business valuation expert. Gives it a little bit different flavor. I think you'll enjoy that from that standpoint. I talk a lot about insurance. I wrote 3 articles last year about insurance. I think it's better than the SOP. They will be in your assigned reading. And unfortunately, reading is heavy this week. A lot of SOP parts, as you can see up there on the pages. On the SOP, speed read them. The purpose of the reading assignment isn't to have you memorize all these little specifics. I want you to read it to understand it's in the SOP. So when you have these unusual situations, when you have a citizenship question, you're going to go to the SOP and read through that. Are they from Haiti? Are they in a special designation? That is constantly changing. So if you have a loan that you're contemplating to a legal permanent resident, someone has a green card, just go ahead and refresh yourself from that standpoint. We know the green card's okay. We need to get a copy of it. Yeah, it's 10 years. But for something more unusual, go to this. That's the purpose of the questions from that standpoint. And of course, 4506, as I said, should have its own part. There's not much to talk about other than get it. And the takeaway in the 4506, a lot of banks get dinged is they order it and they don't read it. They put it in the file, and lo and behold, the numbers don't match. So I encourage you to have a system set up, and I encourage you to not defer that down the road and let the closer do it. I believe that's an underwriting duty, and I think the underwriters should make sure that they get that piece of paper and they're initially and they're verifying. And with that, that's it for office hours. Thank you all for your comments. Keep the questions going. Just as an aside, I don't know how we're going to handle this, but I know that on July 3rd, obviously, we're not going to have office hours because the banks are closed. So send me an email. Do we want to have them Thursdays? Tell me what you would prefer from that standpoint. I'm thinking going Thursday. If someone has an issue with that, let me know. Anyway, enjoy the weekend. I'm enjoying this process. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks.